escape if we neglect so great a salvation, which at the first began to be spoken by the Lord. The unbeliever can sit there week after week through invitation after invitation and neglect obeying the gospel until his opportunities have run out and life is no more. The parent can neglect his opportunities to study the Word and to instill God's truth with his children until those opportunities are gone and the children are out of the house and grown before you know it. The Christian can neglect their opportunities to speak up about God's Word with their coworkers, with their friends, with their neighbors until the opportunities are missed and the hope of salvation is lost. A church member can have good intentions about speaking to the unfaithful and the wayward child of God until the hearts of those who are unfaithful are hardened, and the likelihood of repentance is nearly gone due to our neglect in those areas. The lesson for us is that we've got to get beyond good intentions. Does anybody have a life that's filled with good intentions? Do you have moments where you've got good intentions? I don't think I'm alone. We all sometimes struggle with things that we intend to do and purposes that we have. As I look back at my life, I often think about deeds that I should have done, but I just never got to it. And it brings regret. But you know what? We can't live in the past. Can't change what I didn't do yesterday or last month or last year, 10 years ago. But I can do something about my todays. And I can do something about my tomorrows. I'm guessing you've got some moments like that too. So let's be clear, it's not enough to feel like doing something significant. Just wanting to be a better spouse and a better parent and a better neighbor and a better Christian, that doesn't cut it. You have to make the commitment to do it. One math equation states GI minus A equals 0. Good intentions minus action equals nothing. Your good intentions won't get you anywhere. So I want to think about some serious and specific commitments that we need to make as we endeavor to go beyond good intentions. I want to consider 4 of them with you tonight that we need to consider making as a Christian. And maybe you can think of more. The sermon could probably go anywhere. But I want to think of 4 specific commitments that we need to sincerely make as we go beyond good intentions. Here's the first one. I will use my gifts to serve Christ. Okay? There's the first one. I'm going to commit to use my gifts to serve Jesus Christ. 1 Peter 4:10 says, as each one has received a special gift, employ it in serving one another. You've got a gift, you've got an ability, some type of talent. Use it to serve each other, to serve Christ. Romans 12:6-8 says this. It says that we have gifts that differ according to the grace given to us. We talked about that really this morning from 1 Corinthians 12. We've all got different gifts and abilities, and they're different from one another. And so it says, each of us is to exercise them. What a waste to have a gift, to have a talent, to have an ability, to have an opportunity, and to do nothing with it. Have you ever thought of someone who is extremely gifted intellectual and they wasted their life away? Someone who is a gifted athlete, but by bad behavior, they got kicked off of teams and cut and in trouble all the time, and they never could reach the full potential that everybody thought they saw in them, their natural abilities. What a sad thing to think that there are people who have gifts and abilities that they could be using in the service of the church, and they're not doing anything with it. So this says, exercise them. You've got a gift, exercise it. Use it. It says if it's prophecy, prophesy according to the proportion of his faith. If it's service, use that gift in serving. If it's being a teacher, then use that gift in teaching. Verse 8 of Romans 12 says, if your gift is exhorting, then use that gift in exhortation. If it is giving, if your gift is the ability to give financially, then give with liberality. If it is you're a good leader, then lead with diligence. If your gift is you're good at showing mercy, then show mercy with cheerfulness. All of us are gifted in different ways, and if you're not sure where you think you can best serve, then I would recommend to you, ask a couple of spiritually minded people where they think you could really be a help in the church. Think about it yourself. Think about these gifts that we see listed in Romans 12, and think about what you think you have as a natural ability, and then ask some other people. Sometimes we think we're gifted in some ways, and maybe other people might have a slightly different opinion or perspective on that. And they can steer us in a direction where we can be valuable. But use that gift, use that ability. Maybe it's hospitality. You know how to cook, you can clean, you like to entertain guests. Use the gift. Maybe it's encouragement. You like to talk. You like to cheer people up. You like to embolden others in their walk. Well, use that gift. Encourage people. Maybe it's teaching others. You enjoy teaching. You like educating. You like to learn, and you like to share what you learn. Use that gift. Be involved in teaching. I've been in churches where there are people that were professional teachers. They were teachers by trade. They taught all the time, and you couldn't get them to teach a Bible class. Let me tell you, you're not using your gift. Use your ability. Use the talent that God gave you and use it for the glory of God and His church. Maybe you like working with young people. You like talking to young and upcoming kids, and you're good about talking to them about their problems and teach. Use the gift. Maybe you're a great song leader. Again, I've seen folks that were great singers. They sang in choruses and quartets in college and things like that, and they won't lead singing. We need good song leaders. We need good leaders of worship. Use that gift. You're artistic. You like crafts. We've got bulletin boards downstairs that are empty. Use that gift. Decorate some bulletin boards. Some classroom walls are waiting on you. Use the gift. You're good with construction and remodeling. We got a lobby. We have some carpet that needs replaced. We got some other areas where we could use your help to get this building updated out of the 1970s. Use that gift. You like technology, you like gizmos and gadgets. There's a bunch of technology back there. We have an Instagram page, we got a Twitter page. It doesn't get used much. But the more we use social media, the more we find ways to get the word out, the teaching, the preaching. There's a lot of different ways where we could be using technology and we're not tapping all the potential we have. But if you're good with that, and I'll tell you, the younger folks are usually pretty good with that. We need to be using the younger folks and using them to help out with the church in those areas. But my kids all get iPads. If I have something wrong, by the way, with a phone or technology, I can ask my kids generally. And they can fix the problem for me. They're good with that. Use some of the young people in using their gifts and their talents to get the word out with technology. My daughter showed me some notes from a lesson that I preached. And she said, "Dad, you were talking too fast." So I couldn't get all of the notes down, but she had an entire PowerPoint presentation. I guess it was Keynote with the Apple, but she had an entire presentation laid out. I said, "I'm going to start letting you do my PowerPoints. What am I doing all this for? I'm just going to write out the outline and you do the PowerPoint for me." Use the gift. You've got that ability, that's great. See how you can help out with it. Maybe you've got money and there's people who are barely scraping by in life, and that's very true sometimes during the holidays. They could use a financial gift to help with a car problem or an electric bill or just a bag of groceries when the holidays have our budgets in the negative. So use the gift. You're a behind-the-scenes type of worker. There's things that need done. There are people that need car rides. There are 2 people who called me this week from Alexandria who are deaf, who wanted to come here to listen to the ASL lesson. I've sent them a DVD with stuff in ASL. I hope that they're going to be watching that next week. I'm trying to work with the church in Anderson so that hopefully they can go there. The preacher from the church in Anderson lives in Alexandria, so it'd be certainly much more convenient if they can work that out. But their people need rides. I have people sometimes call me from here in town. There are people who are members here who, some of them, they're not here tonight because they need a ride. You're a behind-the-scenes type of person. You can give a ride. You got a car. Use the gift. Use the gift. There's building to be clean. There's communion to be taken care of. There's cards that need to be sent out to visitors. calls that need to be made. There's 1,000 ways we could help out and serve. So make the commitment. Make the commitment. It's not good intentions. Think about where you can be used and make the commitment to use what God has given you in a way that you can connect with others, shine your light, and reflect that glory back on God. The second commitment we can make, first one is this: I'm going to commit to use my gifts to serve Jesus Christ. Second one is this: I'm going to commit to a vital marriage, a lifelong marriage. Matthew 19 and verse 6 says, they are no longer two, speaking of the husband and the wife, but they are one flesh. And what therefore God has joined together, it says, let no man separate. And so marriage is a commitment. But how many people are in marriages that while you're committed and while you're together, they're not exactly perfect? There's problems. You've got issues. Well, how do I fix that? Well, it's not going to get fixed by your good intentions. You got to have to find some ways to get active and to change some things about yourself. And here's where you can start. God is the one that joins you together, and God is the one who needs to be consulted if you want a vital, lifelong marriage. Look at a couple passages. 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 9. These aren't your typical marriage passages, but verse 9 says, we make it our aim, whether present or absent, to be well-pleasing to Him. Do you think that also applies to marriage? If I'm going to have a better marriage, then I need to be well-pleasing to God if I'm going to improve that marriage. Take a look at verse 15, just a few verses down. It says that He died for all, speaking of Christ, that those who live should live no longer for themselves, but for Him who died for them and rose again. Do you think we can apply that to marriage? I need to quit living for myself, and I need to start living for Jesus Christ. And so that's where you need to start if you want a better marriage. Start working on your relationship with God and being an obedient servant of God, and you're going to start seeing your marriage improve because you are going to improve as a human being when you are living for God and you're serving Christ. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 31. Here's another one that we often apply to a lot of other things, but I think we can apply it to marriage. It says, whether you eat or drink, whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. Can we apply that to your marriage? Everything you do in your marriage, do it to the glory of God. Now, think about some of the things that are causing problems in your marriage. Are you doing things that don't glorify God? And are these the things that are creating issues in your marriage relationship? You see, the real problem in a lot of cases is that we're being selfish and self-centered and sinful and carnal. And the real problem is that we're not devoted enough to God, and we're not serving Christ in our actions. We're not glorifying God by our actions, and that's what's causing the friction. Get your life right with God, and you might see your marriage improve. So marriage isn't exempt from those passages. Commit to your lifelong marriage. That's a specific commitment. Don't just have good intentions. Don't just hope it's going to get better. Commit to that marriage. Commit to making each day better, keeping the promises that you made when you started that commitment. Commit to being the husband God calls you to be. Not the mediocre, just good enough husband, but the husband who leads, who nourishes, who cherishes his wife with every fiber of his being. You're called to love your wife as Christ loved the church. You figure out how Christ loved the church, and you're going to be a lot better husband to your wife. And commit to being the wife that God calls you to be. Not just the good enough to get by wife, but the one who submits and respects and loves her husband 100%. You respect your husband just as the church respects and submits themselves to Christ. When you start figuring that out, you're going to be a better wife. You're going to have a better relationship. But that's a commitment you've got to put your mind to. Third thing that you need to commit to, go beyond good intentions. I will commit to teach my family. I want to commit to use my gifts to serve Christ. I want to, secondly, commit to a vital and a lifelong marriage. But thirdly, I want to commit to teach my family, to teach my children. Ephesians 6, 1 through 4. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. In order for children to obey, parents need to teach. Verse 2, honor your father and mother. which is the first commandment with a promise. Honor them, value them, prize them, treasure their teaching and their instruction highly, so that it may be well with you, that you may live long on the earth. Fathers, don't provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Fathers, you've got a responsibility. Good intentions aren't going to cut it. Too many fathers are spending their time just in recreation with their kids, thinking they're good dads because we take them out fishing every once in a while, or we go ride around a four-wheeler with them, or do something like that. We go hang out. We go to a movie with them. That's really not your key duty, dads. Are you doing all that, and are you neglecting the spiritual instruction and upbringing that's required of you? Fathers, don't provoke your children to anger. Bring them up in the discipline and instruction of our Lord. That's really what God calls you to do. Spending time with your kids, great, it's important, it's valuable. But doing that to the neglect of their spiritual teaching and upbringing is not doing them any favors. The time that we have with our families is short. My son, Samuel, is going to be 14 years old next week. Can you believe that? I can't believe that. 14 years old next week. Where is the time gone? It seems like just yesterday he was this little jaundiced preemie over at St. Joe's Hospital where a onesie was baggy on him. And now this kid's starting to wear my clothes. Which is great because finally he's growing into some clothes that I already have. So I don't have to buy them. Here, wear my clothes. We've got to use our time with our families wisely because the day's going to come when we're out of time. Either we're gone, as we die, or they're out of the house, no longer at home. Noah preached for years, and he was only able to save 3 of his kids. Some folks don't do that well. We've got to use that time wisely. We've got to take those arrows that are in our quiver and direct them where they ought to go. Psalm 127. 3 through 5. Notice a couple of passages from the Old Testament. Psalm 127, verses 3 through 5. It says in verse 3, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but shall speak with their enemies in the gate." Children are a heritage from the Lord. They're from the Lord. What do we do with those children? They're like arrows. What do you do with an arrow? You pull it out of your quiver, you put it, and you've got to direct it. You've got to point it in the direction that you want it to go. And we've got to do that with our children. It says in Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 6, it speaks of our responsibility to train up a child in the way he should go. And when he's old, he won't depart from it. Children sometimes don't know themselves which direction they need to be going. Your job as a parent is to point them in that right direction. Train them up in the direction that that specific child needs to go. And when he's old, he won't depart from it. So training, teaching, and directing takes intentional time and takes discipline. It also takes more than just lecturing your kids. We need to model as examples how we want them to live and act. You need to have good intent, go beyond good intentions, and that you're not just saying what's necessary, but you're living what's necessary to model good behavior for your kids. So what are some of the commitments that you can make to teach your family? Attending all the church services is a good start. Be here. Show them that the church is important, and it's more important because God is more important than any boss or coach or anybody else. Show them and model for them that the church is important. Morning prayer. You spend time in prayer, just a few moments of Bible devotion with your kids. Evening prayer, some scriptural instructions, another next step. Modeling Christianity for your family and how you treat your wife. How do you treat your wife? Are you an example in how you treat your wife for your kids? Modeling Christianity and how you serve your brethren. When there are people are in need, are you one of the first people to serve and to act and try to meet those needs? Model Christianity for your children. Model Christianity in how you speak about others, including your brethren. And even your enemies is another good step to take. But you've got to go beyond good intentions and start living it and teaching it and commit to teach your family. Here's the last thing I want you to see. The last commitment that we're going to talk about here tonight is make the decision that you're going to commit to be a loyal friend. Friendship. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 2. It says in verse 2, it is required of stewards that one be found trustworthy. What about the stewardship of friendship? Friendship is a stewardship. True friends are loyal, and sometimes that loyalty means telling someone what they need to hear rather than what they want to hear. So be a true friend. Commit to be a loyal friend. Do you have friends that you know need to be maybe told something so that they can change some aspect of their life, but you're afraid to say it because you're afraid it might hurt your friendship? I want to tell you, if you don't say what somebody needs to hear, you're not really their friend. Proverbs 17 and verse 17, a friend loves at all times. A brother is born for adversity. Friends are there during times of adversity, but notice what Proverbs 27 and verse 6 says, a friend will do. Proverbs 27:6 says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Why? Because a true friend will tell you something even if it hurts you. If it's going to help you draw closer to God in your life. True and loyal friend loves us enough to hold us accountable for our actions. To have friends, you've got to be one yourself. Are you? And are there friends of yours who need to hear some candid and sobering words out of concern for their souls? Jonathan and David are probably one of the ideal examples of friendship in the Scriptures. And Jonathan was a real friend to David because he warned David of the danger that was ahead of him. Even though it caused great heartache, even though it caused a whirlwind of trouble for David to hear it, but true friendship speaks out. Speaks those words that our friends need to hear rather than just being superficial friends for the purpose of business or social ladder climbing and fun. Real friends say things that need to be said. Proverbs 27 and verse 9 says, ointment and perfume delight the heart, and the sweetness of a man's friend gives delight by hearty counsel. True friends are willing to counsel one another and say what needs to be said. Jesus himself was our friend. You know what Jesus had to do sometimes? He had to say things that sometimes his audience didn't like to hear, but he did it because he was interested in the salvation of their souls. Sometimes we've got to say things that are going to lead to us getting crucified by our friends. Just like Jesus had to do that as well. Are you a loyal friend, willing to endure adversity for others and willing to say what needs to be said when the circumstances present themselves? That's the lesson. It's the lesson about going beyond good intentions and actually moving towards action. Using your gifts to serve Christ and trying to think about how you can serve Him daily. Committing to a vital marriage by committing yourself to God. Committing to be a teacher and leader in your home and with your family, and committing to be a loyal friend. Life is short, and the clock is ticking. So what are you willing to do beyond good intentions as you serve in these areas? The invitation is yours if you are in any way subject to it and need to make changes in your life and confessions and need to start not just having good intentions, but really serving the Lord in sincerity of heart. We invite you to come and obey the gospel and do what you need to do while we stand and while we sing.